The waters of the northern kingdoms trembled as a group of merman spies swam frantically, their fins cutting through the current like arrows. Their faces were pale, their breaths ragged as they neared the great underwater kingdom. The blue-green glow of the palace loomed ahead, its coral spires and pearl-encrusted walls a beacon of hope and strength. The spies darted past schools of shimmering fish and burst into the royal court where the warriors of northern kingdoms had gathered, their spears and shields glinting under the soft luminescence of underwater fireflies. Gasped Okchukwu, the lead spy. His voice echoed through the court, silencing the murmurs of the gathered warriors.
Your Majesty, Queen Ifema's army is on the march. They are vast in number, a swarm of warriors that darkens the waters as they advance. They are armed not only with weapons, but with the dark magic of the sea serpent, a force that bends the very ocean to their will. If we do not act swiftly, they will be upon us by dawn, and the northern kingdoms will face devastation unlike anything we have ever known.
Eze Mmiri, the leader of the northern kingdoms, rose from his ornate throne made of seashells and golden kelp. His tall frame exuded authority, his glowing green eyes a testament to his royal lineage. Beside him stood Adaobi, her human essence now merged with the essence of the sea, a golden crown of tiny pearls resting on her braided hair. She placed a hand on Eze Mmiri's shoulder, her gaze steady despite the news. His brother Izuwa and his sister Eze Mmiri stood close by.
Warriors of the northern kingdoms, summon the 20 kings of the underwater kingdoms. We must gather at the council rock immediately.
Eze Mmiri's voice boomed through the court. As the merman and mermaid messengers swam to relay his orders, the court erupted into a flurry of activity. Warriors sharpened their spears, tightened their armor made of shark scales, and tied charms around their wrists and necks for protection. Mothers kissed their sons and daughters who would march to battle, murmuring prayers to the sea gods. The elders sat in a circle, whispering incantations to fortify the kingdom's defenses. At the council rock, a circular platform of ancient stone, the 20 kings of the underwater realms assembled. Each king was adorned in the distinct colors of their kingdom, vivid reds, deep blues, and shining silvers. They greeted each other with solemn nods, their faces grave.
Brothers and sisters, the time has come to defend our home. Queen Ifema seeks to destroy all that we hold dear, but we are prepared. Remember our strategy. The warriors of the western reefs will flank their left side, while the eastern currents guide our forces to cut off their retreat. We will trap them near the coral abyss, where their magic weakens. Do not forget, we fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of our people.
A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. The kings nodded, their eyes burning with determination.
Now let us remind ourselves of our unity and strength.
Eze Mmiri continued, raising his trident.
Sing with me the song of our ancestors.
The rhythm of the song quickened, and the warriors began to beat their spears against their shields. The sound reverberated through the waters, filling every corner of the kingdom with courage and resolve. As the final verse rang out, Eze Mmiri raised his trident high.
Today we fight to reclaim Eze Mmiri. Let the waves carry our strength.
The warriors roared in unison, their voices a powerful current that surged through the sea. Eze Mmiri stepped forward, his voice calm but firm.
Remember, bravery is not the absence of fear but the triumph over it. Fight with honor and let our ancestors guide your hands.
With that, the warriors of the northern kingdoms, led by their resolute kings, swam to their positions, their movements precise and unified like a well-orchestrated current. The gleam of their shark-scale armor reflected the faint luminescence of the ocean, casting an eerie glow over their determined faces. Each stroke of their powerful tails propelled them closer to their assigned posts, the weight of their duty evident in every movement. The waters around the kingdom seemed to hold their breath, an unnatural stillness descending upon the once bustling reefs. Schools of fish darted away as if sensing the tension that now gripped the sea. Coral formations stood silent like ancient sentinels, bearing witness to the impending conflict. The air was thick with suspense, a palpable energy that wrapped around the hearts of the people. Families huddled together in their homes of woven seaweed and coral, whispering prayers to the gods of the deep. Elders sat in solemn circles, their chants mingling with the faint hum of the ocean. All awaited the inevitable clash, the battle that would decide their future and the survival of the kingdom. It was the calm before the storm, a fragile moment of stillness teetering on the brink of chaos.
Hi everyone, just a quick break to remind you to subscribe, like and comment if you're enjoying the story. Your support means so much to us. If you're a new subscriber, welcome to the Ako family. Let us know where you're watching from in the comment section. To our returning subscribers, thank you for always being here. We appreciate you. Now let's dive right back into the story.
Deep under the ocean, the calm was broken by the loud sound of a battle horn. A northern warrior raised the conch to his lips and blew hard, sending a warning through the water. The sound traveled fast, echoing through coral reefs and seaweed forests. At the West Rift and the North Rift, warriors stopped what they were doing. They heard the call and knew what it meant. Trouble was coming. Gripping their spears and shields, they moved into position, their tails stirring up clouds of sand as they got ready to fight. The sea grew quiet, waiting. The warriors were alert, their eyes fixed on the distance, ready for the enemy to arrive. Queen Eze Mmiri's massive underwater warship loomed like a predator, cutting through the murky waters. She stood tall, flanked by her husband, King Ikweni, the serpent seer with his glowing eyes, and her loyal general, Udoka. Tension gripped the northern warriors, their weapons gleaming under the dim, shifting light of the underwater battlefield. But they held firm, their eyes locked on the gates of their stronghold. "Break those gates!" Queen Eze's voice rang out, cold and commanding. At her signal, Udoka charged forward, his powerful frame like a battering ram against the gates. Cracks formed under his relentless assault, threatening to splinter the defenses. Suddenly, a dazzling burst of energy erupted from within the gates. All eyes turned as Eze Mmiri emerged. His body glowed with an ethereal light, his hands radiating pulsating magic. With one swift motion, he unleashed a massive shockwave, sending Eze Mmiri's warriors flying. Bodies spiraled downward, lifeless, to the ocean floor. While Udoka barely survived, his powerful body weakened and injured. Queen Eze Mmiri's expression shifted to one of shock and fury. She turned sharply to her serpent seer. "What is this? You told me the boy had survived, but you never mentioned he had such power." The serpent seer bowed slightly, his tone calm but urgent. "My queen, his power has grown beyond anything I could foresee. But there is a way to stop him." He produced a shimmering charm, its energy crackling in his hands. "Use this. It will weaken the boy, but only if you can get close enough to him." Clutching the charm tightly, Queen Eze Mmiri's lips curled into a menacing smile. "He will regret ever opposing me." Amid the chaos, Queen Eze Mmiri surged forward, her warriors carving a path through the northern defenders. Her trident gleamed as she struck with ruthless precision, each movement calculated and deadly. Her eyes burned with determination, and each swing of her weapon sent northern warriors tumbling back. By her side, King Ikweni fought valiantly, his strikes precise and his movements agile despite the ferocity of the battle. Ahead, Eze Mmiri stood like a beacon of hope for the northern forces, his magic wreaking havoc on Eze Mmiri's soldiers. Each blast of his power sent tremors through the waters, leaving trails of glowing energy in its wake. The boy's youthful face was etched with concentration, his every move a testament to his growing strength and determination. Mmiri, locked in a fierce skirmish nearby, caught sight of the queen advancing toward his son. His heart pounded as he saw her clutching something in her hand. Without hesitation, he propelled himself forward, his trident blazing with an otherworldly light. Waves of energy rippled through the water with each stroke of his tail, his movements fueled by desperation and paternal instinct. As Eze Mmiri neared Mmiri intercepted her, his weapon aimed directly at her chest. Their eyes met for a split second, a clash of raw determination and vengeful rage. He thrust his trident forward with all his might. But in a tragic twist, King Ikani lunged to protect his wife. The trident pierced his chest, and he crumpled lifeless to the ocean floor. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The battlefield fell into a haunting silence as all eyes turned to the fallen king. "No!" A scream shattered the stillness, echoing through the waters. Grief twisted her face, but it quickly gave way to a dangerous resolve. Her trembling hands clenched the charm tightly before she hurled it to the ground with a guttural cry. The artifact exploded on contact, releasing a vortex of raw energy that spiraled outward in a massive, destructive wave. The force was indiscriminate, tearing through the battlefield and killing warriors on both sides. Bodies were flung violently as the vortex raged, leaving devastation in its wake. As the deadly energy raced toward the northern forces, NMD reacted instinctively. With a surge of raw power, he summoned a shimmering protective barrier that enveloped the northern warriors. The shield glowed with an intense light, crackling as it absorbed the brunt of the explosion. Inside the barrier, the warriors huddled together, their faces a mixture of awe and gratitude as they watched the boy's magic protect them. When the dust settled, the battlefield was a graveyard. The once mighty army of Eze Mmiri had been reduced to scattered remnants. Bodies lay strewn across the ocean floor, and the waters were clouded with the aftermath of destruction. The northern forces, though battered, stood victorious. The serpent seer swam to Queen Aeon's side, his voice urgent and low. "My queen, we must leave now. This battle is lost. If we stay, we will not survive." Fema clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. Her gaze lingered on the battlefield, her mind racing with thoughts of revenge. But the reality of their losses forced her hand. At last she gave the order. "Fall back," she commanded, her voice trembling with rage. The remaining warriors retreated into the last functional warship. As the queen boarded, her eyes locked on NMD, who stood defiantly among the northern warriors. Her expression was a mixture of fury and despair, promising vengeance. With a final glare, she disappeared into the depths, her vessel vanishing into the shadows. As silence fell over the battlefield, the waters seemed to hold their breath. NMD stepped forward, his young face set with determination, his voice cutting through the stillness. "Father, we must go after them now. This is our chance to end her tyranny once and for all." Henry placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder, his expression calm yet resolute. "Patience, my son," he said firmly. "Victory is not about haste. Today we've won a battle, but the war is far from over. Our strength lies in strategy, not recklessness. First, we must tend to our wounded, fortify ourselves, and prepare. Then we'll march to Odo and end her reign once and for all." He paused, his tone heavy. "Her serpent knows the sacred laws. Attacking Odori directly would be a sacrilege. We'll consult Enwa Ajadai, the wise old turtle, to find another way." Around them, the northern warriors erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the waters like a triumphant anthem. They celebrated NMD's courage and Eze Mmiri's unwavering leadership, their spirits lifted despite their losses. But amidst the celebration, an unspoken tension lingered. The greatest challenge, the final battle, still loomed ahead. As the wounded were being cared for, Eo swam in hurriedly from the western end of the battlefield, his face pale with alarm. "Umi," he shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. "I cannot find Eze Mmiri. She was with us during the fight, but after the explosion, she's gone." Umri's heart pounded. His eyes darted around as dread clawed at his chest. Without hesitation, he swam toward the herbalist's quarters, where the injured were being tended. "Adaobi," he called out, his voice laced with panic. His eyes scanned the crowd, his fear mounting with each passing second. A faint groan caught his attention. He rushed toward it to find Adaobi lying on a bed of seaweed, her face pale but alive. Relief flooded over him as he knelt beside her, cradling her gently. Adaobi, are you hurt? He asked, his voice trembling as he cupped her face. She shook her head weakly, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm fine. But Udoka. She swallowed hard. He dragged Eze Mmiri onto the warship before they retreated. His jaw tightened, his expression darkening with fury. I'll bring her back, he promised, his voice cold with determination. You rest now. You're safe here. Leaving Adaobi in the care of the healers, Mmiri swam swiftly to his private chambers, his mind racing. He needed guidance, and fast. The wise old turtle would know the path forward. Meanwhile, aboard Queen Ifema's retreating warship, the queen sat in a dark corner, her hands trembling as tears streamed down her face. Her cries echoed through the silent vessel. I'll kill them all, she whispered, her voice breaking with rage and grief. They'll pay for his death. Every last one. She wailed over the death of her husband and defeat. Just then Udoka appeared, dragging Eze Mmiri behind him. She was bound tightly, her wrists and tail encased in glowing chains that sapped her strength. Udoka's movements were sluggish, his body weak from the wounds he'd sustained in battle, but his grip on Eze Mmiri remained firm. Queen Ifema's tear-streaked face twisted into a cruel grin. Slowly, she rose from her seat, her laugh starting as a low chuckle before escalating into a sinister cackle. Ha ha ha! Finally, she hissed, stepping closer. We have one of their own. Eze Mmiri, the precious sister of Eze Mmiri. Did you think you were untouchable? Foolish child. Mmiri glared up at her captor, her eyes blazing with defiance despite the chains that held her. You'll never win, she spat. Your hatred blinds you, and it will destroy you. Queen Ifema crouched down, her voice venomous. No, little fish. It is you who will be destroyed. You will watch helplessly as I tear your family apart. Your capture will draw them to me like moths to a flame. And when they come, she stood, her gaze icy. I will end them all. Udoka remained silent, his eyes showing a flicker of unease due to the injury he sustained. In the shadows, the serpent seer observed, his glowing eyes glinting with malevolent satisfaction. As the warship descended deeper into the abyss, Queen Ifema's laughter echoed through the dark waters, her twisted plans beginning to take shape. As Queen Ifema's warship breached the golden gates of Odamari, a heavy tension filled the waters. Citizens swam out from their homes, their expressions a mixture of confusion and unease. The queen, once the image of strength and invincibility, now bore the scars of defeat. Her armor was battered, her crown askew, and her face lined with grief and fury. From the royal palace, her son, Prince Emeka, swam out in haste, his tail glowing with vibrant shades of blue and gold. His features were sharp, his youthful energy radiating as he rushed to meet his mother. Mother, he cried, his voice echoing across the kingdom. What happened? Where is father? Queen Ifema froze at his words, her lips tightening. Her gaze, heavy with pain, met her son's. Mother, Emeka pressed, his voice trembling. Where is father? She inhaled deeply before speaking, her voice cold and brittle. Your father is dead. Emeka's eyes widened, and a sharp gasp escaped his lips. His fists clenched as his tail flicked violently. Dead, he roared. The North has taken everything from us. We must gather every soldier we have and march against them. I will lead the attack myself. Queen Ifema's expression hardened, and she raised a hand to silence him. No, Emeka, she said firmly. Revenge is certain, but not through reckless war. They expect us to retaliate with our army. We will not give them the satisfaction of predicting our moves. Emeka glared at her, his anger barely contained. Then what do you propose? Before she could answer, the serpent seer emerged from the shadows of the throne room. His body shimmered with scales that reflected the light in eerie patterns, and his glowing eyes fixed on the queen. His voice was calm but filled with an unsettling wisdom. My queen, he began, bowing slightly. The North may celebrate their victory, but Eze Mmiri lineage cannot attack Odemare directly because it's their home. To do so would be a sacrilege against the sacred laws of the deep. However, he continued, his tone darkening, this does not mean they will not find a way. Eze Mmiri and his allies are cunning. They will seek other means to penetrate our defenses. Queen Ifem frowned, her sharp mind already racing. What would you have me do? The serpent seer straightened, his coiled body gleaming ominously. You must weave protective magic around Odemare, a barrier that no outsider can breach without your blessing. This magic must be tied to the very essence of the kingdom, drawn from its sacred waters and the bloodline of its rulers. Emika stepped forward. His curiosity piqued despite his anger. Protective magic. What kind of magic can keep them out? The seer's voice deepened, resonating through the water. There is an ancient spell known as the Veil of Tides, a shield that cloaks the kingdom in invisibility and repels all who seek to harm it. The spell requires the combined efforts of the high priests, the queen's blood, and a rare gemstone known as the Tear of the Abyss. This gem lies hidden in the coral tombs, guarded by powerful enchantments. Queen Ifem's eyes narrowed. Then we will retrieve it. No cost is too great to protect Oi. The seer inclined his head but added a warning. Be cautious, my queen. The magic is powerful but requires constant tribute to maintain. Fail to uphold the balance, and the magic will consume the kingdom it was meant to protect. I understand, she said resolutely. Turning to Emika, she placed a hand on his shoulder. You will lead a group of warriors to the coral tombs and retrieve the Tear of the Abyss. I will oversee the preparations for the spell. Emika hesitated, his anger giving way to determination. As you wish, mother. But when the time comes, I want to be the one to face Eze Mmiri and his family. Queen Ifem gave him a small, grim smile. You will have your chance, my son. But first we must secure Odui. The North will learn that our kingdom is unbreakable. As Emika swam off to gather his warriors, Queen Ifema turned to her court. Summon the high priests. Prepare the altar. By the time the Tear of the Abyss is in our possession, the Veil of Tides will ensure that Odemare remains untouchable. The kingdom buzzed with activity as preparations began, the tension of defeat giving way to a grim determination. Deep in the shadows, the serpent seer watched with satisfaction, his glowing eyes reflecting the ominous future he had set into motion. Meanwhile, far in the northern waters, Eze Mmiri and his allies plotted their next move, unaware of the magical barrier being woven against them, a shield that would test their cunning, their courage, and their unity. The dim glow of a lone torch flickered against the cold, damp walls of the dungeon, casting shadows that seemed to dance in eerie silence. Fue sat cross-legged in her cell, her long silken hair cascading down her back, her eyes sharp and calculating. The clanking of keys preceded the sound of soft footsteps as Chitoku, Prince Emika's personal bodyguard, approached with a tray of food. He hesitated at the cell door, his heart pounding. Fue's piercing gaze had a way of disarming him, and her smile this time felt warmer than before. You're late, she teased softly, her voice melodic yet edged with mischief. My apologies, Chito said, sliding the tray through the bars. I had matters to attend to. Fue leaned forward, her delicate hands resting on the cold bars. What matters? He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Prince Emika and I leave tomorrow to retrieve the Tear of the Abyss. Her eyes widened in mock surprise, but inside, her mind was already plotting. Such a dangerous journey, she whispered, her voice laced with concern. What if something were to happen? Oh, shrugged. It is my duty. I must protect him, even if it costs me my life. Leaning closer, his tone turned desperate. Joko, you must delay his return. My brothers need time to organize their attack. Without that delay, all could be lost. He froze, conflicted. Her words tugged at his deeply buried resentment. Captured as a slave and forced into servitude, this kingdom was never his home. His loyalty to Prince Emika was only skin deep. For his beauty, her clever words, and the promise of a shared cause were enough to ignite a flame of rebellion in his heart. I'll do it, Chido murmured, his voice trembling with the weight of his decision. For you. A genuine smile lit her face, and for a brief moment, she reached through the bars to touch his hand. Thank you, Chijo. You won't regret this. In the great hall of the Northern Kingdom, Imri stood tall, his trident in hand, the gleaming weapon symbolizing his authority. Around him were his trusted allies, Izuanam Chukudi, and the wise turtle Enwa Ajidai, who perched atop a pedestal carved with oceanic symbols. Enwa Ajidai's deep, gravelly voice broke the heavy silence. Attacking Eze Mmiri directly would be a sacrilege, Eze Mmiri. It is our lineage, our ancestral home. To succeed, you must strike where they least expect, through their foundation. Mmiri furrowed his brow. What do you propose, Enwa Ajidai? The serpent seer Mmiri. Enwa Ajidai replied, his tone firm. She is their eyes and ears. Without her, their plans will unravel. Disguise yourselves as merchants, gain entry to Eze Mmiri, and head to the ancestral tomb. There lies the ancestral trident, imbued with ancient power. Summon the spirits bound to it, and they will silently take out the serpent seer. Once she is gone, you can infiltrate the palace at night, kill Queen Ifema, and reclaim your kingdom. The room fell silent as the weight of the plan settled over them. Mmiri looked around at his warriors. Who among you will embark on this dangerous mission? Chukwudi stepped forward without hesitation, his eyes blazing with determination. I will. 8 others followed, each pledging their loyalty to the cause. Iwanamdi and Eze Mmiri himself stood at the forefront, their resolve unshaken. We leave at dawn, Mmiri declared. Prepare yourselves. The group moved in silence under the cover of darkness, their forms hidden beneath cloaks woven to blend into their surroundings. Their destination loomed large in their minds. Eze Mmiri, the ancestral home that had been tainted by betrayal and bloodshed. Chukwudi walked beside Iyuwa, his grip on his spear firm. Do you believe we'll succeed? He asked quietly. Iyuwa glanced at him, his expression unreadable. We must. For our people, for our lineage, and for justice. Ahead of them, Imri led the group, his thoughts clouded by the weight of leadership. The road was fraught with danger, but the vision of reclaiming Eze Mmiri burned brightly into his mind. Back in Eze Mmiri prepared for the journey with Prince Emeka, his heart heavy with the knowledge of his betrayal. He glanced at Sumi's cell one last time before leaving, her words echoing in his mind. Delay him, for us. He clenched his fists, torn between guilt and longing. His loyalty to Prince Emeka, warred with his growing affection for Eze Mmiri and his simmering resentment for Udoka, the man who had once enslaved him. As the first rays of dawn pierced the sky, Chido mounted the ship, ready to lead Prince Emeka into a labyrinth of delays, distractions, and danger, all for the woman who had captured his heart. Disguised as merchants, Imri, Iwa and Chukwudi, and their 8 warriors navigated the bustling streets of Eze Mmiri with practiced ease. Their cloaks masked their identities, and their movements betrayed no sign of their true intent. By nightfall, they reached the sacred ancestral tomb. Inside the tomb, Imri knelt before the altar, the ancestral trident glowing faintly in his hands. He muttered the ancient incantations, summoning the spirits of his ancestors. A sudden rush of wind filled the chamber, and the spirits, resembling streaks of lightning, burst forth into the night, heading directly for the Serpent Seer's coven. Back in the palace, the Serpent Seer felt the chilling presence of the ancestral spirits moments before they struck. With a silent, supernatural force, the spirits extinguished her life, leaving her lifeless on the floor, her eyes frozen in fear. Meanwhile, Chukwudi infiltrated the palace disguised as a lowly slave. Assigned to the kitchen, he deftly poured a strange substance into the flour being used to prepare the evening bread. When the guards ate their dinner, the drugged bread worked swiftly, sending them into a deep, unnatural sleep. As midnight fell, NMD slipped silently into Queen Ifema's chambers. With the precision of a predator, he slit her throat, severing her head cleanly from her body. He hung it in the palace hall, a grim warning to all who had betrayed the rightful rulers of Odomari. The others moved stealthily through the guards' quarters, killing them one by one in their sleep. Among the fallen was Udoka, whose death marked the end of an era of oppression. By dawn, the remaining guards surrendered, trembling at the carnage left in the wake of the rebellion. Eze Mmiri was released from the dungeon, her beauty unmarred despite her ordeal. She embraced her brothers with tears in her eyes. When the topic of Chijoku arose, Eze Mmiri quickly intervened. "Chijo helped me," she said firmly. "He betrayed Prince Emika and ensured his journey was delayed. Spare him. He does not deserve death." Eze Mmiri nodded solemnly, acknowledging her plea. "For his part in our victory, Chijo shall be spared." Far from had successfully led Prince Emika and his retinue astray, guiding them down the wrong path and delaying their return. Frustration mounted as the prince realized the journey had taken far longer than expected. When they finally arrived at Odomari, Prince Emika marched into the palace, his voice echoing as he called out, "Mother, where are you?" The silence was his only answer. Suddenly, Eze Mmiri's warriors surrounded him. The prince's guards drew their weapons but were swiftly overpowered. Prince Emika fought valiantly, but he was no match for the seasoned warriors. He fell to the ground, his life snuffed out as swiftly as he had entered the palace. Chijoka stood silently, his heart heavy with conflicting emotions. Eze Mmiri's warriors spared him, honoring Eze Mmiri's request. With the palace reclaimed, Eze Mmiri ascended the throne, restoring justice to the kingdom. The halls of Odomari resonated with the sounds of celebration as the people rejoiced in their liberation. Eze Mmiri stood proudly beside her brothers, her ordeal a testament to her strength and resilience. Though Chijoka's betrayal haunted him, Eze Mmiri's forgiveness gave him a sense of belonging he had never known. He chose to remain in Odomari, dedicating his life to rebuilding the kingdom he had once sought to destroy. The lineage of Odomari was restored, and the reign of Eze Mmiri became a symbol of courage, unity, and the enduring power of ancestral strength. Word of the victory reached the northern kingdom, and soon after, Adaobi and the wise old turtle Enwa Ojidai began their journey back to Odomari. The waters parted before them as they traveled swiftly, their arrival anticipated with great hope. When they reached Odomari, they were met with loud cheers and celebrations. The people of the kingdom, now free from tyranny, rejoiced at the return of their heroes. But it was Adaobi who caught the attention of all. With a glowing smile and a hand resting gently on her abdomen, she announced to the gathered crowd, "I bring more than just news of our victory. I am with child." The crowd fell silent, and Adaobi continued, "Our ancestors have revealed to me that it is a daughter we will soon welcome." The news filled the air with joy and excitement. The people of Odomari celebrated not only the victory but the promise of a new generation to carry the bloodline forward. Eze Mmiri stood by Adaobi's side with NMD, smiling warmly, proud of the unity they had achieved. The future of Odomari, under the guidance of Eze Mmiri and the new life Adaobi carried, shone brighter than ever.